Some houses don't creak, they breathe, not with wood or wind, but with memory. They hold a presence, they wait, and when night falls, they watch. Welcome to Paranormal Nightshift, where the shadows whisper, the walls remember, and the chilling stories you send us come to life. I'm your host, Andy, and every week I guide you through real experiences from listeners who brushed up against the unexplainable. What you're about to hear isn't just eerie, it's intimate, and it just might change how you feel walking through your own hallway at night. Before we slip into tonight's story, I've got something just for the brave ones out there. Head to paranormalnightshift.com to claim your free copy of The Birth of Dimensional Desperado, the first book in our supernatural time travel saga starring Buck Shadow Sheriff Freeman. The second book is coming soon, and if you're on our email list or Patreon, you'll get an exclusive early look before anyone else. Plus, I've been sharing stories to the email list that are just too creepy for the podcast. If you want to read what can't be said out loud, that's where you'll find them. Now, let's turn our attention to the dark. Tonight's story, The House That Watched Us, comes from a listener named Cassie. It's about a home that didn't just haunt, it observed. And it made one thing clear: they were never alone. So a couple of years ago, my husband and I rented what at first glance felt like the perfect home. It was beautiful. Big windows that let the sun pour in during the day, cool tiled floors that made the whole house feel clean and modern, and soft carpet in the bedrooms that made everything feel just a little more homey. The backyard was private, the kitchen was open plan, and for a rental, it felt like we'd won the lottery. If only we had known what came with it. We moved in during the summer. The days were long, warm, and uneventful. Boxes were unpacked, furniture was arranged, and everything just felt right. But then night fell, and everything shifted. I can't explain it exactly, not in a way that makes sense on paper. But that first night, the moment the sun dipped below the trees and darkness crept through the windows, my stomach tightened. My husband looked at me from across the couch with that same unsettled look on his face, like we were both hearing a sound we couldn't identify, a sound that didn't exist. The house, so welcoming in the daylight, turned cold. Not in temperature, but in energy. We both felt it, like we'd intruded on something, like we weren't alone. The first thing I noticed was walking. Our home had a long hallway that connected the open plan kitchen, dining, and living room to the bedrooms and the bathroom. The layout meant that anytime you were sitting in the living room, your back was to that hallway. You couldn't help it. And that hallway, that became its favorite place. That first night, as we sat watching TV, I heard it, bare feet padding softly up and down the hallway. The sound was unmistakable. Not shoes, not slippers. Bare skin slapping gently against cold tile. Heel to toe, heel to toe. I paused the show and looked at my husband. You heard that too, right? He nodded slowly. There was no one there. That same night, I got up to use the toilet. The hallway was dark except for a nightlight we'd plugged in by the wall. I tried to walk quickly, but something in me, something primal, made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It felt like there was a laser sight pinned between my shoulder blades, like I was walking into danger I couldn't see. By the time I made it back to the bedroom, I was shaking. My husband didn't need to ask what happened. He already knew. He'd felt it too. Over the next few weeks, it didn't stop. The footsteps at night were constant. Sometimes soft, sometimes heavy, like someone was pacing with purpose. Always up and down the hallway. Always stopping just a few feet behind the couch. We'd feel it too. A sudden shift in the air, a heaviness in the room, then a presence behind us. Not just the feeling of being watched, but something stronger. Like invisible eyes boring into the back of your neck. You'd instinctively pull your shoulders up, turn, half expecting someone to be standing there. And sometimes, someone was. figure. Always faint, never quite in focus. Like the outline of a person caught in the corner of your eye. Tall, slender, and pacing. It would walk up the hallway, pause at the edge of the living room, and just stand there, watching, waiting. Once, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I was sitting on the couch, my husband was in the kitchen, and I was alone in the living room, scrolling on my phone. I heard the steps behind me, slow, deliberate. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to, because the next thing I felt was the unmistakable weight of a hand. Not resting gently, not a breeze, a full-on hand. Cold, but somehow also tingling, right on my shoulder. And then it was gone. It didn't just stay inside the house. We never went outside at night. Ever. The moment the sun went down, the backyard transformed. It wasn't fear of animals or strangers. It was something more primal. Like if you stepped onto the back porch after dark, something would be waiting for you, just outside your line of sight. Something that wanted you to come closer. I began dreading late work shifts. If my husband wasn't home when I got back, I'd sit in the car for too long trying to psych myself up to walk through the front door. Once I was inside, I'd lock it behind me and check every room with the lights on, even though I knew nothing living had broken in. But something had already made itself at home. Eventually, the energy changed. It didn't feel murderous anymore, just mischievous. Like it had accepted us, but still wanted us to know who was boss. It didn't like visitors. One night, my sister came over. We were sitting in the dining room, chatting casually. I was in mid-sentence when the oven behind me slammed open, then shut again with enough force to make the pan rack inside rattle. My sister jumped out of her chair, and I tried to laugh it off, but then, right beside me, the chair shifted. Not a subtle nudge, not like someone brushed against it. The chair pulled back and rocked forward again like someone had scooted out, then sat back down. We were being told, "You're fine," but she isn't welcome. There was one moment I'll never forget. Not because it was the scariest, but because it felt the most personal. I was in the bathroom getting ready to go out. My husband was playing PlayStation in the living room. I could hear the sounds of the game faintly through the door. Then I heard him say it. "I love you." Again, "I love you." And again, "I love you. I love you. I love you." It kept going, over and over. The same inflection, same rhythm, almost mechanical, like a child mimicking what it thought humans were supposed to sound like. I rolled my eyes. "I love you too," I shouted back, half laughing, half annoyed. Then I heard him respond from the other side of the house. His voice was puzzled. "What was that for?" I froze. I stepped into the hallway. He was still sitting on the couch, controller in hand. He looked up at me, confused. "You were saying, 'I love you,' over and over," I said. He shook his head. "No, I wasn't. I didn't say a word. That house stayed weird the whole time we lived there, but we grew used to it. The fear faded into familiarity. Whatever lived there had accepted us, maybe even liked us in its own twisted way. But it made one thing very clear. We were renting the house, but it still belonged to something else, and it always would. And you know what? Cassie's story is a reminder that the most unsettling hauntings aren't the loud ones. They're the aware ones. The kind that wait, that listen, that mimic love, and wear it like a mask. Some houses never want to be empty, and when you live in one, you don't forget. Even if the lights are off and the doors are locked, part of you still flinches at the sound of footsteps behind you because you remember how it felt when they were real. Thank you for joining me tonight, for sitting with Cassie's experience, and for holding space for things we don't always have words for. And if this story gave you chills or stirred something deeper, know you're not alone. And if you're craving more stories like this, ones that press too close or dig too deep, be sure to join the email list at paranormalnightshift.com. That's where I share the exclusive stories we can't put on air, and where you'll get first access to Book 2 of Dimensional Desperado when it's ready to rise from the past. And of course, if you want to support the show, Patreon is the way. You'll get ad-free episodes, early access, and a front row seat to every shadow Buck Freeman faces in the books. As always, keep your eyes open and your instincts sharper, because if a house ever makes you feel watched, it probably is. Until next time, stay aware, stay brave, and if something whispers your name from the hallway, whatever you do, don't answer, and have a good night, time travelers.